If a woman ever says these 5 things to you, she's not being honest, she's not being vulnerable, and she's definitely not looking out for your best interest. She's handing you a warning wrapped in words, and most men completely miss it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which phrases should trigger an immediate exit. And the last one on this list? It's the most dangerous because it sounds the most romantic. Here's something uncomfortable, but absolutely true. Most relationships don't end because of one massive betrayal. They end because of small, repeated patterns that one person chose to ignore. And those patterns almost always start with words, specific phrases, sentences that seem harmless on the surface but carry enormous weight underneath. According to relationship research by Dr. John Gottman, a psychologist who spent over 4 decades studying why couples succeed or fail, he can predict whether a relationship will end in separation with over 90% accuracy. 90%. And the biggest predictors aren't screaming matches or dramatic blow-ups. They're subtle communication patterns. The things people say that slowly erode trust, respect, and emotional safety. As a woman, I'm going to be brutally honest with you right now. There are certain things that come out of a woman's mouth that should immediately tell you something is very wrong. Not because all women are manipulative. That's not what this is about. But because certain phrases reveal a mindset that will eventually destroy you if you stay. And here's the part that makes this tricky. Some of these phrases sound completely reasonable. Some even sound caring. That's what makes them so effective and so dangerous. They slip past your defenses because they don't trigger your alarm system. Until now. I'm about to walk you through 5 specific statements that should make you seriously reconsider any relationship. And I want you to pay close attention to number 5, because it's the one men fall for most often, and it's the one that causes the most long-term damage. Let's get into it. If you really loved me, you would. The first phrase that should send you heading for the nearest exit is this. If you really loved me, you would. Fill in the blank with anything. Give up your friends. Stop talking to your family. Quit your job. Move across the country. Change who you are as a person. This sentence is one of the oldest emotional manipulation tactics in the book. And it works because it weaponizes something sacred, your love for her, and turns it into a tool of control. Here's why this phrase is so psychologically effective. It creates what therapists call a double bind. You're trapped between 2 impossible options. Either you do what she's demanding and lose a piece of yourself, or you refuse and get labeled as someone who doesn't love her enough. There's no winning move, and that's exactly how it's designed. Let me tell you about a guy named Chris. Chris was in a relationship with a woman who used this phrase constantly. At first, it was small stuff. If you really loved me, you'd text me back faster. Okay, annoying but manageable. Then it escalated. If you really love me, you wouldn't hang out with your friends so much. Then, if you really love me, you'd let me check your phone. Within a year, Chris had lost most of his friendships, was walking on eggshells daily, and had given up hobbies he'd enjoyed for over a decade. He didn't even realize what had happened because each individual request seemed small, but combined, he'd surrendered his entire identity. Here's the truth. Love isn't a bargaining chip. A woman who genuinely cares about you doesn't use your feelings as leverage to get what she wants. She communicates her needs directly without attaching conditional threats to your emotional commitment. So the moment you hear, "If you really loved me," recognize it for what it is, a manipulation tactic disguised as a romantic appeal. And understand that no matter how many times you comply, the demands will never stop. They'll only grow. All my exes were toxic. The second phrase that should raise every red flag in your possession is this. All my exes were toxic. Now, before you jump on me for this one, let me be clear. Some people genuinely have had terrible experiences in past relationships. Toxic partners exist. Abusive situations are real. I'm not dismissing that for a second. But here's the statistical reality that most men overlook. If every single relationship she's ever been in ended badly, and every single ex is described as the villain, at some point, you have to ask a very logical question. What's the common factor in all of these failed relationships? It's her. And that's not me being cruel. That's pattern recognition. Psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula, who specializes in narcissistic personality patterns, has pointed out that one of the hallmark behaviors of emotionally manipulative individuals is the consistent villainization of past partners. It serves multiple purposes. It generates sympathy. It positions her as the perpetual victim. And most importantly, it sets the stage for your relationship by establishing a narrative where she is never the problem. Here's what this means for you practically. If she describes every ex as crazy, abusive, or toxic, then when your relationship inevitably hits rough patches, because all relationships do, guess who becomes the new villain in her story? You do. You become the next toxic ex she warns her future boyfriend about. I knew a woman, let's call her Dana, who had this exact pattern. Every guy she dated became the worst person she'd ever met within months of breaking up. She'd rewrite the entire history of the relationship to make herself the innocent victim and him the monster. And every new boyfriend believed her. Until they became the next story. The healthy version of this sounds very different. A woman who's done genuine self-reflection will say something more balanced. We weren't right for each other. I made mistakes too. It was complicated. That accountability, that willingness to own her part, is what tells you she's emotionally mature enough to be in a healthy relationship. So, listen carefully when she talks about her past. The story she tells about her exes is a preview of the story she'll eventually tell about you. I don't need you. I can find someone better. The third phrase that should immediately activate your exit strategy is this: I don't need you. I can find someone better. This one usually comes out during arguments, heated moments, disagreements, and because of that context, a lot of men dismiss it as something she said in anger. She didn't mean it. She was just upset. But here's what psychological research tells us about statements made during conflict. Studies published in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that contemptuous language during arguments, phrases designed to belittle, threaten, or diminish a partner, is one of the strongest predictors of relationship failure. Stronger than the actual issues being argued about. The content of the fight matters less than how the fight is conducted. And I can find someone better is pure contempt. It communicates three devastating things simultaneously. First, you are replaceable. Second, she views herself as above you. Third, your position in her life is conditional and can be revoked at any time. This is a power play. She's establishing dominance by making you feel insecure about your value. And if it works, if you respond by trying harder to please her, by becoming more accommodating, by shrinking yourself to avoid triggering another threat, then she's successfully trained you to prioritize her comfort over your dignity. Let me share something that happened to a guy named James. James was dating a woman who regularly dropped the "I can find someone better" bomb during disagreements. At first it stung, but he brushed it off. But over time, it fundamentally changed how he operated in the relationship. He stopped expressing his needs. He stopped bringing up issues. He became a passive, agreeable version of himself because he was terrified that any friction would lead to her leaving. He wasn't in a relationship anymore. He was in an audition, constantly performing for a woman who held his emotional security hostage. Here's the reality check. A woman who respects you, even during her angriest moment, will never threaten to replace you. Because in a healthy relationship, the security of the bond isn't a weapon. Disagreements happen between two people who are committed to working things out, not between someone holding the door open and someone desperately trying to prove they deserve to stay. When she says she can find someone better, believe her. Not because she can or can't, but because she's telling you exactly how she views you. And you deserve to be with someone who sees you as a choice, not a placeholder. You're too sensitive, or you're overreacting. The fourth phrase that should have you reconsidering everything is this: you're too sensitive or you're overreacting. This might be the most normalized form of emotional manipulation in modern relationships, and it goes by a very specific name: gaslighting. The term comes from a 1944 film where a husband systematically manipulates his wife into questioning her own perception of reality. And when a woman consistently tells you that your emotional responses are invalid, she's doing the exact same thing. Let me paint a clear scenario here. She flirts with another guy right in front of you. You express that it bothered you. Her response? You're overreacting. It was nothing. You're so insecure. She cancels plans at the last minute for the third time this month. You tell her it's frustrating. Her response? Why are you being so sensitive? It's not a big deal. She says something hurtful. You tell her it hurt. Her response? I was just joking. You can't take a joke. See the pattern? Every time you express a legitimate emotional response, it gets dismissed, minimized, turned back on you as evidence of your weakness rather than her behavior. Over time, and this is the dangerous part, you start to internalize it. You start questioning yourself. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe the problem really is me. And once that self-doubt takes root, she can get away with almost anything because you've lost confidence in your own perception. Research from the National Domestic Violence Hotline identifies this pattern as a core component of emotional abuse. It's not just rude. It's not just dismissive. It's a systematic dismantling of your ability to trust your own feelings. A woman who genuinely cares about your emotional well-being will respond differently. Even if she disagrees with your reaction, she'll acknowledge your feelings. She'll say something along the lines of, I understand that bothered you. Let's talk about it. She won't make you feel defective for having emotions. So if you're constantly being told that your feelings are wrong, too much, or irrational, that's not you being sensitive. That's her refusing to be held accountable. And that distinction matters enormously. I just want you to be happy. And now we arrive at number 5, the one I warned you about at the beginning, the one that sounds the most caring but is potentially the most destructive. I just want you to be happy. Wait, how is that a red flag? That sounds genuinely sweet, right? That sounds selfless. That sounds caring. And in certain contexts, it absolutely is. But here's where it becomes dangerous. When it's used as a justification for leaving, for cheating, for making selfish decisions, or for avoiding accountability. Let me explain how this plays out. She wants to break up. Instead of being honest about her reasons, maybe she's bored, maybe she's interested in someone else, maybe she simply doesn't want to put in the effort anymore. She frames it as a sacrifice. I'm doing this for you. I just want you to be happy. You deserve better than me. On the surface, that sounds selfless, noble even. But what's actually happening? She's making a selfish decision and packaging it as a gift to you. She's removing herself from accountability by positioning the breakup as something she's doing for your benefit, not hers. This phrase also shows up in another particularly destructive context: after infidelity. I wasn't happy, and I just wanted you to be happy too. I thought if I found happiness elsewhere, it would make things better for both of us. The mental gymnastics required to turn cheating into an act of generosity are honestly impressive. Terrible, but impressive. Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. A man named Daniel was with a woman for 3 years. By all accounts, things seemed stable. Then one day, she sat him down and said, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I just want you to be happy. I don't think I'm the one who can give you what you need. Daniel was devastated, but he also felt guilty about being upset because she'd framed it so selflessly. How could he be angry at someone who was supposedly sacrificing their own happiness for his? 2 weeks later, he found out she'd been talking to another man for months. The "I just want you to be happy" speech wasn't selflessness. It was an exit strategy designed to minimize her guilt and maximize his confusion. Here's the key distinction. When "I just want you to be happy" is genuine, it's accompanied by actions that actually prioritize your happiness. She communicates openly. She addresses problems. She puts in effort to make the relationship work. But when it's used as a justification for hurting you, when it comes right before or right after a decision that clearly serves her interests over yours, that's not love. That's emotional manipulation dressed in the most convincing costume available, the appearance of selflessness. And this is why it's the most dangerous phrase on this list, because it's almost impossible to argue against. How do you get angry at someone who says they want you to be happy? You can't. And that's exactly why it works so well. So let's bring this all together. 5 phrases, 5 warning signs, 5 statements that should make you stop, evaluate, and seriously consider whether the relationship you're in is worth continuing. If you really loved me, you would. Uses your emotions as leverage. All my exes were toxic. Removes her accountability from every failed relationship. I can find someone better. Threatens your security to maintain control. You're too sensitive. Invalidates your feelings to avoid responsibility. And I just want you to be happy. Disguises selfish decisions as selfless ones. None of these phrases exist in isolation. They're symptoms of larger patterns. Patterns of manipulation, emotional immaturity, or outright disrespect. And the longer you tolerate them, the more of yourself you lose. Here's the truth that nobody tells men often enough. Your emotional safety matters. Your boundaries matter. Your self-respect matters. And no relationship, no matter how good it looks from the outside, is worth maintaining at the cost of your identity and your peace. Recognizing these phrases is the first step. Acting on that recognition, that's where real strength shows up. Now here's the thing. Everything I just shared with you operates on one critical assumption: that you already understand the psychological dynamics between men and women. But most men don't. And that gap in understanding is exactly what causes them to miss red flags, tolerate toxic behavior, and make mistakes that push the right women away while attracting the wrong ones. That's why the next video you need to watch is the one appearing on your screen right now. It's called "Younger Women Hate When Older Men Do These 7 Things: Psychology and Attraction." And the reason it connects directly to what you just learned is this. If you don't understand what actually repels women versus what attracts them, you'll keep ending up with the wrong person and missing the right one. That video breaks down the specific psychological triggers that determine whether a woman respects you or dismisses you. And trust me, some of these mistakes are ones that nearly every man makes without realizing it. Click on it now, because knowing what to walk away from is important, but knowing how to show up correctly in the first place, that's what changes everything. I'll see you in that video.